taking too long. If the survivors want to, they can just not do the generators, which is considered holding the game hostage. Technically, what I'm doing is skying, but it's not
What?
against terms of service. It's not considered holding the game hostage. But the survivors, when they do it, it is. But who cares at the end of the day?
That's not true. Wait a minute. Before we get into the video, I would like to say that I had a tiny discussion with Dowsey in the comments about holding the game hostage. Now, I do have the answer as of right now. I was just kind of recreate my reaction, which was really bad. So here is the discussion that we had. And I said, no one is holding the game hostage. Survivors are allowed to not do gens. You, as killer, are allowed to do nothing. It's not holding the game hostage if all parties in the game decide to do nothing all game. If anything, you would be most at fault here. This type of situation is more akin to Myers' Tombstone Mori. If a Myers tries to get the achievement, but the last survivor jumps into a locker, no one in that situation is holding the game hostage. Sadly, I wish that wasn't the case for either of these situations, because both players can still take actions to progress the game. The pig AFK strat is similar to this. The survivors can still do whatever they want, but it was always your job to kill them. Both sides can still take actions to progress the game, but neither do. No hostages. It only ruined your initial plan of AFK in a trap box, just like how jumping into a locker ruined a Myers trying to go for the achievement. So let's read everything Dowsey said, and let's read everything I said, I guess. So Dowsey says, but I am not doing nothing. I am securing a kill by blocking a jigsaw box. The survivors are actually doing nothing. The devs have actually addressed the FK pig strat and said it's a legitimate strategy that is not bannable, nor is holding the game hostage. They have also addressed survivors not doing gens and said if they don't attempt to progress the game for 25 minutes, it's considered holding the game hostage because they're the ones preventing the game from ending. Like I and Coconut explained, the excuse of trying to get everyone out is not good enough, since there are ways to achieve that outside of refusing to repair generators. I have dev confirmation to back this up. So I wrote this big essay. Arguably, yeah, I probably shouldn't have gone so overboard, but I kind of wanted to break down everything he said because there was a lot of things that I felt like they were wrong or out of place. So I simply do not agree. Just like how Patrick described skill, I do not think you doing literally nothing is something better than survivors doing nothing. By saying you are doing nothing, I mean you are taking no actions in the game. If doing nothing secures a kill by making no actions, button presses, you are still doing nothing. I can counter every point you made also. So he says the survivors are actually doing nothing. But with his own logic, they are doing something. They're surviving. And I think that's a key point in being a survivor. So they are doing something keeping a survivor alive, which is the collective goal of the survivors is a 4-man escape. Now, technically, I'm wrong here. After just reading it just now, if you really want to go really deep into it, this is a personal opinion. I think it's the survivor's goal to survive, not for 4-man escapes. I think those are two completely different goals. I think you can aim for the 4 survivor escape, but eventually what you would want to do is survive even if you have to sacrifice 3 other people. That's how this game was, in my opinion, was originally designed, but I digress. The devs have actually addressed the AFK strat and said it's a legitimate strategy that is not bannable, nor is holding the game hostage. And I agree with this. It's correct, and I did say he was most at fault, and not that it was an offense. Now, before I get into, I'm not going to just nitpick all this, I'm just going to read everything. They have also addressed survivors not doing gens, and if they don't attempt progress for the game for 25 minutes, it is considering holding the game hostage. So I really wanted a source on this because I didn't really think this was true. And even if it was true, then the killer is just AFKing at a box is considered not progressing the game. Technically speaking. I think I'm actually wrong here after I read back at it. Killer doing nothing means the game is still going to progress. As in, the survivors just do gens and leave. So the killer doing nothing doesn't really mean anything. You can do nothing for 25 minutes and not get a kill. It's only guarantee when a survivor does a gen. AFKing in itself is not a bannable offense. The reason it's not is that if you AFK, the other side just wins rather easily. On both sides, basically. If someone is AFKing and forcing a loss on someone because of an inability to continue without a chance of winning, is more holding the game hostage than survivors trying to come up with a way to survive in such circumstances. Again, it's not holding the game hostage, just describing my thoughts on why. If the devs really think the survivors in the situation is holding the game hostage, then it's silly logic compared to their skill puns. Oh, jeez, sorry. Because they're the ones preventing the game from ending, and this is straight up false. They are preventing you from moving away from the trap box. They are not preventing you from moving away from the trap box. You still have the ability to end the game whenever you wish by moving and attempting to kill them, or the more likely scenario, they will escape. Like I and Coconut explained, the excuse of trying to get everyone out is not good enough, since there are ways to achieve that outside of refusing to repair generators. And this is false too. I don't I don't really get what this really means, I guess. There's ways to achieve that outside of refusing repairing generators. So if the survivor's goal is to get a 4-man escape, the only way they can reliably get that escape is that they wait for the pig to move from the trap box. And technically speaking, there's nothing stopping you from just camping the box even far away from it. Like if you just go away from it and then they try to take their box off, their trap off, that just go back to it. You don't have to be that far away from it. You don't have to camp the box. But I digress. This is more like a technicality. Like if you want a 4-man escape, then you do have a chance of getting that 4-man escape, and that's either the pig moving or doing something else, or the pig DCs out of boredom, which is what one of those teams did successfully, apparently. There is no scenario all 4 escape reliably while you AFK at a trap box. 3 can escape and end the game, but holding the survivor accountable on trying to escape with all 4 is not very sound ethical logic. I don't really know why I added ethical logic there. I think that was really stupid of me. I think it was just more like the logic behind it is... I don't know what his logic is behind what he thinks holding the game hostage is, and what is an excuse, I guess. I don't know. My conclusion was neither side is holding the game hostage. Both players can progress the game whenever they wish. By definition, no one is being held hostage. Survivors are trying to survive. You are trying to kill. You AFKing in a spot would guarantee a kill, but the survivors are most likely moving around at the very least or thinking of ways out of it. You are preventing a survivor from surviving, which is also your goal. I also don't personally blame you for anything. I'm not mad at you for doing this. I think the devs need to rework Pig's traps, because Pig can do some really tilting stuff like slug and carry an active trap survivor for the entire duration. This is the devs' fault for allowing such a situation to happen, but saying the survivors are at fault for trying to survive by any means is kind of silly, no matter if the survivors confirm or agree. I hope you read this and try to see my logic. Just because the devs say they agree doesn't mean that it is right. So Dowsey responds, it doesn't matter if you simply don't agree. This is the dev's statement on the matters in regards of holding the game hostage, which I am repeating in my video and comment. Your take on it is incorrect based on TOS, EULA, and what the devs will rule in this situation if it was reported. I don't know why he brought this part up, but maybe it comes up later on, because I think I have an idea why he brought it up, but in terms of what we're discussing, it's literally pointless. Writing an essay in the comments won't make it any more correct. It's not something that's up for debate based on what the devs have said on the forums about this. I wish he didn't phrase it like this, because it sounds like he's trying to say, just because you write a bunch of words doesn't mean that you can be correct in any way. That's not what he said, but it's just what it felt like to me. Like, imagine you have like this passionate project, or writing a thesis on some science paper, and it's completely wrong, and that's fine to be completely wrong, but it's like denying all that work just because you don't want to deal with reading all of it, which, If you disagree with what the devs consider holding hostage, and that's fine. It might be better to express that you disagree with the devs on the matter, but I'm not really trying to host a discussion on if the survivors are right to consider this holding the game hostage. So, I'm not going to read the last thing I said. Basically what I said is, I looked at the FAQ, the official website on reportable and bannable offenses, and it only states holding the game hostage. So, let's go to that just real quick. I finally found it. So here is griefing intentional gameplay abuse. So holding the game hostage. In-game report required. Customer support ticket optional. So holding the game hostage, they don't really define what this means. And let's go to Dowsey's take on what it might mean, what he thinks it means. So we can all agree that if a game cannot end because of a player's actions, that means the game is currently being held hostage. So I think that's really key to what he's trying to explain or think. He could obviously explain himself, and I could be completely wrong in what he means. So if a game cannot end, therefore someone's being held hostage in some way. And that makes logical sense. Because if a game doesn't end, then obviously something needs to happen. There's also the situations that I explained in my last previous post, like what if a Myers wants to get the achievement for killing people in tier 3 with the Mori stab that he does with his add-ons, but a survivor hops into a locker. Like, who's at fault? Is the game being held hostage at that point? What is happening here? So Dowsey's take makes a lot of sense in that regard, in that we need to establish that what is the game being held hostage. And there's also the point that Dowsey and I think like the people that I asked, they always try to bring up that if you do that pig strat, that it is not, holding the game hostage in any way, which I said I've agreed on. But there's also like other factors to address. So the pig strat is completely legal and fine. And I think that's where Dowsey bases his argument, is that what I am doing is fine, what they're doing is wrong. Because if you look at it logically, the pig is allowed to AFK at a box all she wants, and if the survivors don't play the game, then they are inherently holding the game hostage, which makes sense. If they just don't play the game, then like should they be reported for AFKing, not being there? Or like what's the situation here? So in addition, they're not doing their main objective. Like let's say you're playing Fortnite and you just AFK in a spot and you just die. Like that's basically kind of the situation that's happening here. But like the game will eventually end in Fortnite, where the circle will just go in and kill you. And then the problem solves itself. Dead by Daylight doesn't really have that. They have endgame collapse, but there are situations where the endgame collapse doesn't solve. So, if the endgame collapse can't even solve it, that's even more evidence that this is a game hostage situation. So basically, Dowsey's side is, I'm being held hostage because I'm doing a legitimate strat. They are not even playing the game. Therefore, they're the ones at fault and are holding me hostage. And that's basically it. I think that's basically the argument, is that the survivors are basically AFK, not doing anything. I'm doing something because I'm securing a kill, but my kill is only secured if they do something, so therefore they're at fault. So this is where I disagree tremendously, and there's a big reason for it. Like, I'm taking back to that Fortnite example. Imagine someone reporting you because you didn't get a kill, or that you didn't build a single thing. The whole point of Fortnite is to build something to defend yourself with, and also to kill people with guns, right? Imagine you're being reported because you did so badly that it's just a reportable offense. Like, you get banned for doing bad. Arguably, this is not a good segue to what Dead by Daylight's gameplay is, because if you don't do gens, you're actually ruining the game for 3 other people. And I think that's really bad, obviously, but if all 4 survivors are trying to work in tandem to try and help someone else, imagine being reported for that. It seems really silly logically. It's weird how people try to view not doing gens, because it's hard to explain. Basically, just because you're not doing gens doesn't mean you're not playing the game. There is a difference between not doing your objective and being AFK. Being AFK basically means that you're not actually on your keyboard and you're eventually going to get out the crows. But even Dead by Daylight has a way, like, if you're just AFK for too long, the killer will just kill you. If they choose to. They're allowed to make that choice. So that's why I think that's the main reason why AFKing is not like such a harsh penalty. I don't even think it's even penalized at all. If you go AFK, it's just whatever to the devs, which, yeah, I guess I agree with to some extent. But if you look at just plain not doing gens, like, imagine you're the first one found, you never touched a gen, you never touched a gen, and you got chased all game and died, but everyone escaped. Is that a reportable offense because you didn't do gens? Like, this is where, like, I saw, like, I could just pull holes into an argument that not doing gens equals being a reportable offense. Because if you put that in situations where it makes sense to not do gens but still be helpful to the team, then I just couldn't agree both ethically and if a company would actually do that. The other biggest thing is, as I said, is no one's being held hostage because everyone can still make moves. No one's forcing you to stay in this game. No one's forcing you to get kills. No one's forcing you to die. Everything is just a choice. There is choices everywhere. Survivors could just do the last gen, get 3 people out, and leave. It's completely possible for them to do that. It is completely possible for Dowsey or the pig in this state. It's completely possible for the pig to just move and try to continue the game. They're both completely possible outcomes that can happen. I do have the official response to who is right and who is wrong. So, like, even saying all that, I wanted to express that Dowsey's point of view. If I even got it right, I doubt he's going to watch this, but if he does, if he wants to try to explain what he's trying to say and all that, I'm perfectly happy. I think I wanted this to be more of an educational video on, like, what is logical in this situation and what is reportable and what should be reportable. I don't really like how the Meyer situation and the pig situation exist in the game because they're just inherently standoffs, and standoffs were something that was not liked in the Dead by Daylight. That's debatable. I think people like seeing people just sit there for 2 hours looking at the hatch. You remember that? But I don't think people want that situation. I don't think people want that situations to continue happening. And there's still standoffs that happen. Just like, there's also this standoff situation that can sort of happen, is that killer can just sit at the hatch. Like, whether it be a Myers or, like, literally any killer, like, Wraith can just stand there cloaked and wait for the survivor to get to him while the hatch is still opened. That's kind of a standoff because a survivor can't really do anything except run to the hatch. Like, it could be like any killer, like Billy, Myers, Pig, doesn't really matter. They just sit on the hatch and wait for the survivor to come, so they know where the survivor is when they close the hatch. Otherwise, they are forced to do gens. And the gen count could be varying. Like, I remember I had to do a situation where I faced a Myers that just camped the hatch, and I just completed all 3 gens. And I tried to escape that way, but I died anyway. But I digress. The standoff situations should always be fixed. It's completely behavior's fault for them existing in the first place. And I wanted to express that Dowsey makes a fair point. It is logical. It is logical. I think he was thinking it through and everything. So I also want to bring up the TOS and the EULA. Technically speaking, he's right on this because behavior could just ban you for just shits and giggles. It doesn't really matter why they banned you. I don't really see how that's incorrect though. It's just stating that they can ban you for whatever you want. So what I wanted to try to express is what is the common practice on what is holding the game hostage? What is the common definition of holding the game hostage? Because if your definition of holding the game hostage is that the game never ends, then that is not what it means. So I'm going to bring up... Alright, so this is the official response. I would like to know 2 things. Please respond to this ticket with an answer if you can. I want to know what holding the game hostage entails. I fucked up the quotations, god damn it. Is it forcing the game state to never end? For example, before endgame collapse, killer blocking the basement when they could, and survivors were in the basement, that is holding the game hostage. I use this as an example to know what it means to take the game hostage. However, someone tried reporting 4 players for holding the game hostage because they refused to do generators. My 2 questions are, what is defined as holding the game hostage? If survivors refuse to do gens, go gens, whether it be survival or just flat out don't want to, is not doing gens but still playing considered a reportable offense holding the game hostage? And I guess I just fucked up so hard. Alright, so Landon here says, "Hi there, thank you for reaching out, blah blah blah. Holding the game hostage is precisely the act of a player to halt the natural progression of a trial match, effectively preventing the endgame sequence from happening and delaying the game. The example you provided is a great one, as it defines the very act of a killer to prevent the player from making any progress and delaying the endgame sequence. As for the case of generators, there are several factors to consider, such as the survivor's intention. If they are simply hiding from the killer, not willing to do any gens, or if their cooperation, that scenario was subject to investigation with visual proof to understand what has happened, so it may or may not be considering holding the game hostage, depending on the actions of the players." Alright, so to break that down, the very first paragraph makes it seem that Dowsey was right, and I was going to make this video if he was right. I honestly don't care if I'm right or wrong. It honestly kept me up at night going, but am I right? Am I wrong? Like, what is holding the game hostage? Like, it was bugging me so much. So I just went to the report a player tickets, and I'm just like, you know what? I just wanted to ask this as a question. I hope they answer, and they did, and I'm super happy for that. So effectively preventing the endgame sequence from happening and delaying the game. And actually, this is the big part of how Dowsey's definition. I think this is what Dowsey's definition was, is holding the game hostage is precisely the act of a player to halt the natural progression of a trial or match. The natural progression is survivors do generators. I think that's pretty obvious. Effectively preventing the endgame sequence from happening and delaying the game. So, technically speaking, Dowsey is right. Because with this definition right here, it means that the survivors are completely at fault and that they should be reported, based on this definition alone. So I wanted to be even more clarified, and I actually gave them the 2 examples, the Myers situation and the pig situation, both at once. I did want it to be varied, but they're technically the same situation because Myers brings the add-on, Myers once he gets the achievement, the survivor's just trying to survive. And the pig situation is exactly the same. Pig just brings an item, pig wants to kill, pig just AFKs out of box. Literally the same situation. It's not literally the same. You know what I mean. It's literally the same process. I wanted it to be a varied response, so like I can get a little more details out of it. But my completely went out the window. So Eric here, he apologizes for the delay. Considering both scenarios that were presented, I see that both cases can't be considered holding the game hostage. But let's look at both of them. So I really like how he just doesn't say nope and then just leaves. I really like that. But let's do a look at them. So in scenario 1, which is the Myers, we only have 2 players left, and both of them have the option of ending the game at any moment. The survivor can leave the locker and maybe end up getting hooked, which is not what they wanted, but still. While the killer has the option of opening the locker and hook the survivor, not getting the achievement, but again, able to finish the match. So it's up to both players on how long they wanted the match to last. So I was so excited to hear this. So like I wanted it to be clarified because I felt like this dude was going exactly by how Dowsey's definition was. And it's not like I'm going to be like salty about it. It's like, okay, well, he's right, I'm wrong, and I'll make a video about how stupid I am. So, in scenario 1, not holding the game hostage. On the second scenario, although the assassin chose to block the box where survivors can remove the traps, still body block is not considered a punishable offense according to our rules. Even though the survivors have traps in them, they still have the option to do generators and the game will still end eventually. So again, none of the presented scenarios can be considered holding the game hostage. Yeah! I've never been so happy that I was right. I don't know, like, it was such like a good feeling because it just felt like I kind of knew how their stance was on holding the game hostage. I think I talked to Peanuts before on some random conversation about that. Remember that Meyer situation that I presented to you of my own personal experience, where Myers just stood on the hatch and I was forced to either do a generator and reveal where I am, or just just reveal myself and die. And Peanuts responded with, "Just do gens." Like, what? Just do gens. And I'm just like, what? That's your response? Just do gens? And when I heard that response, I'm just like, they don't care about the situation at all as long as the game ends in some way. I hope I was able to answer your questions, and I gave them a very positive feedback. I really enjoyed how they expressed themselves. But this still could be confusing. It's really confusing. So this one's just this guy straight up says, nope, it's not. But this guy gives a very clear definition that supports what Dowsey says. And I don't know, I wish they were a little bit more clear on this. So I have one guy saying that I'm right, and this is one guy that doesn't say he's right. He gives a definition that supports Dowsey's position. And sorry, my dog was barking. So tell me what you guys think. What should be definition of holding the game hostage? My definition will be, if the game is no longer able to be continued, not being able to end reliably, and one party is causing this, then that one party is holding the game hostage. I think that's what the definition is, in the very short and sweet way of saying it. Basically, if the game can end, then the game is not being held hostage at that point. So I'm pretty sure it says, like, if a killer body blocks a survivor in a corner and just AFKs there, that's not a reportable offense, believe it or not. I think that's like somewhere in here somewhere that just go, whatever, you AFK, you let 3 people escape, that one person dies. It's only a problem if you keep doing that to the same person over and over again, because apparently that's targeting someone. But write down in the comments below what you guys think. I actually think this is a very interesting topic. I think it's something that people should consider when reporting someone, like, from holding the game hostage. But that's all I have to say, really. I mean, I don't really want to talk about it too much. See you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.